You're walking past someone smoking outside a building. You notice the smell. You have a reaction to it, maybe discomfort, maybe nothing at all. You know the facts. Bad for you. Addictive. Billions spent every year trying to get people to stop. You know when it started. Cigarette companies. The 20th century? Soldiers in the trenches. A modern problem with a modern history. You think you know the story. Humans have been deliberately breathing smoke for at least 50,000 years. And for most of that time, it had nothing to do with addiction, and everything to do with something the modern world has almost entirely lost. So what was smoke actually for before cigarettes, before tobacco companies, before addiction was even a concept? Who was the first person to deliberately inhale it? And what did they think they were doing? Here's the first thing to understand. Fire is at least 1 million years old in human hands. We know this from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. The moment humans controlled fire, they were in smoke. Every meal, every warmth, fire, every night camp. Smoke was not something ancient humans encountered occasionally, it was the background of their entire lives. So the question is not when humans first breathed smoke. They were born into it. The question is when the first human deliberately sought it out. When smoke moved from background to intention, because dozens of plants that ancient humans encountered did something that ordinary campfire smoke did not. They altered the brain. Nicotine, DMT, cannabinoids, mescaline, compounds that reduced pain, suppressed hunger, produced visions, created a feeling of contact with something beyond the ordinary world. Someone at some point noticed this, not accidentally, deliberately. For a long time, researchers assumed the story of intentional smoke started a few hundred years ago with tobacco reaching Europe. Then they looked more carefully. In 2021, researcher Darren Duke and his team published a study in Nature Human Behavior. They had found charred tobacco seeds at a site in the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah, dated to 12,300 years ago. That pushed the earliest confirmed tobacco use back by roughly 9,000 years from what anyone had previously documented. And tobacco is just the plant we have evidence for. It is almost certainly not where the story starts. The oldest confirmed use of psychoactive plants in archaeological contexts is consistently tied to one thing: healing. Not recreation, not pleasure, not habit. Ethnobotanist Gary Paul Nabhan has documented that across dozens of indigenous cultures on every inhabited continent, the earliest recorded use of smoke-producing plants was medicinal, pain relief, infection treatment, the management of respiratory illness. The smoke was not incidental. It was the delivery system. Inhaling a compound gets it into the bloodstream faster than eating it, drinking it, or pressing it to a wound. These people had no pills, no surgery, no anesthesia, but they had figured out through generations of careful observation that the smoke of a particular plant did something to pain, dulled it, sometimes removed it entirely. This was not getting high. This was the most sophisticated pharmacology available to any human being on Earth. And it worked. But medicine is only the beginning, because at some point, the smoke stopped being about the body and started being about something else entirely, something the modern world doesn't really have a category for. Across virtually every ancient culture that researchers have studied, the deliberate use of smoke to alter consciousness is tied to one role: the person who goes where ordinary minds cannot. Archaeologist Michael Winkelmann has documented that shamanic practice, including the ritual use of psychoactive smoke, appears on every inhabited continent, independently, predating agriculture, writing, and permanent settlement, placing it in the Paleolithic, at least 40,000 years ago, possibly much earlier. The shaman was not a religious leader in the modern sense. They were the group's specialist in altered states, and smoke was their primary instrument. Think about what the group needed from them. A child is sick in a way no one understands. The animals have not come to the usual places. Someone had a dream that felt like more than a dream. These are problems that hunting and foraging cannot solve. They require a different kind of knowing. So the shaman sits at the fire, prepares specific plants, breathes the smoke in a specific way, and goes somewhere. When they come back, they have an answer. Whether the answer is always right is almost beside the point. The group has a way of facing the unknowable. That is what the smoke was for. But here's where it gets genuinely strange, because the most recent science suggests that the ancient use of psychoactive smoke wasn't just cultural, it may have done something to the human brain that changed what humans were capable of thinking. Psychopharmacologist Ronald Siegel spent years studying something unusual. The drive to alter consciousness is not uniquely human. Animals seek out fermented fruit, psychoactive plants, and intoxicating substances without being taught to. Siegel documented this across dozens of species. His conclusion: the drive to alter consciousness is a fundamental neurological impulse, as basic as hunger, as old as the brain itself. For humans, the question is, what happened when that impulse met the specific compounds in ancient smoking plants? Recent research by Robin Carhart Harris at Imperial College London has shown that psychedelic compounds, many of them found in plants, ancient humans smoked to suppress the brain's default mode network and dramatically increase neural connectivity. The brain, under these compounds, makes connections it would not ordinarily make, sees patterns it would not ordinarily see. Now look at the oldest art in the world, Chauvet Cave, Lascaux, Altamira, created deep underground, in darkness, by firelight, by people who may have been in altered states. Researcher David Lewis Williams has argued that the imagery in Paleolithic cave art animals that seem to emerge from rock, figures that are half human, half animal, geometric patterns that recur across thousands of miles, and thousands of years matches the documented visual experiences of people in psychedelic states. The art we call the birth of human symbolic thought may have been made by minds that smoke had taken somewhere ordinary consciousness could not reach. And then tobacco arrived, and in the space of 50 years the story of smoke changed completely. Because for the first time, a sacred plant became a product. Tobacco was first cultivated in the Americas roughly 8,000 years ago. In every indigenous culture where it appears, it is treated as a sacred plant, used in ceremony, offered to spirits, smoked by designated people for specific purposes, at specific times. Scholar Jordan Goodman, in his definitive history of tobacco, documents what happened when Spanish explorers brought it to Europe in the 1500s. Within a generation, every sacred context had been stripped away. The pipe that was a ritual object became a fashion accessory. The plant that was offered to the sky became a commodity with a profit margin. The entire religious and medicinal framework that gave smoke its meaning for 50,000 years discarded in approximately 50 years. Think about what that means. A Cherokee elder preparing tobacco for ceremony grows the plant in a specific place, harvests it at a specific time, prepares it with specific prayers. It is offered before hunting, before a council, before a death. It is not entertainment. It is the most direct line available between the human world and the world beyond it. Then a European merchant sees it. He sees the smoke. He sees the pleasure on people's faces. He takes seeds home. Within one generation, it is being sold on street corners in London. The sacred container is gone. Only the substance remains. Here is the part nobody expects. Nicotine, the addictive compound in tobacco, the thing that keeps people smoking long after they want to stop, is not unique to tobacco. It exists in tomatoes, in potatoes, in aubergine, in bell peppers, all members of the same plant family as tobacco, the Solanaceae. The average tomato contains approximately 7 micrograms of nicotine per gram, chemically identical to the compound in a cigarette, far too small an amount to cause any noticeable effect, but present, measurable, real. Every person who has eaten a tomato has consumed nicotine. Our bodies have been processing it since agriculture began. We didn't discover nicotine when we started smoking tobacco. We just found a much more efficient delivery method, which means the line between ancient medicine and modern addiction, between the sacred and the shameful, between 50,000 years ago and this morning is blurrier than anyone wants to admit. We were never not in a relationship with these compounds. We just changed the terms. You're back outside that building, the same person, the same smoke. But you know something now that you didn't know before. That smoke is not a modern invention. It is not a corporate product wrapped in a modern failure. It is a 50,000-year-old impulse running through a body that has always searched for ways to step outside the ordinary moment, to dull the pain that couldn't be named, to reach for something beyond what the waking mind could hold, to mark a threshold, to talk to something larger. The sacred container is gone. The cigarette is what remains when you take everything that gave smoke meaning and throw it away. But the human inside the cigarette is unchanged, still reaching, still trying to cross the same distance. The first person to breathe smoke deliberately wasn't addicted, wasn't self-destructing, and wasn't doing something shameful. They were trying to talk to something larger than themselves, and that impulse, that need to reach beyond the ordinary world, is still the most human thing about us.